Hi, friends. Here we go with another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Eggert. Think of today's guest as kind of a 911 responder for all things financial. After you hear about the career of this individual, you're going to understand why. Let's spend a little time learning about the journey of my friend, Lenny Newman. Lenny, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Aaron. Happy
I,
Friday, my friend.
yeah, we're recording on a Friday, which is what I like to do. Maybe a little earlier than I normally do, but we're getting after it. It's all good. Um, well, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Before we start digging into things, so I know how to refer to you for the rest of the conversation, will you please share your pronouns with me?
Absolutely. He and him.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so when you and I became friends, I knew that you'd be a great podcast guest just because you are so conversational and you're easy to talk to. You've had such an interesting journey. You're not from Minnesota originally, and you've matriculated here and you've built a career and a life here. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up. Just give me a feel for what it was like to be a little Lenny Newman.
Well, first of all, the family, I'm the oldest of two. I've got a younger sister. Both my sister and I were born in Chicago, and we lived there until probably I was in my third grade age. And then my dad, who worked for one company his entire professional career, he moved the family from Chicago, Illinois, to Dayton, Ohio, which is actually where my sister and I were both raised. So we were raised in Dayton, Ohio.
I have a friend that actually played college basketball. She's from Stillwater that played college basketball at Dayton, Ohio. What is Dayton, Ohio known for?
Dayton, Ohio is actually probably the two things that would come to mind. National Cash Register, NCR, was headquartered in Dayton, Ohio. And there were a number of feeder industries for the automotive industry. Delco was there. There was a lot of automotive suppliers, manufacturers in Dayton.
And
National Cash Register, automotive suppliers, and then the real claim to fame, which is what you'll see around the tagline for Dayton, is the birthplace of aviation, because the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, were from Dayton. They actually had a bicycle shop in Dayton. So I would say we were known as the birthplace of aviation.
Is it a pretty strong manufacturing industrial type of city? I feel like that part of the country is, just because of its proximity to the Great Lakes and things like that. Is it?
It is. I mean, oftentimes Ohio is referred to as, the Rust Belt. And, heavy manufacturing, as I'm sure you can imagine, through economic ups and downs, the same thing happened. I mean, we knew a lot of people who, in the 70s and 80s, when I was growing up, as businesses expand and contract, they were impacted, especially if they were in the automotive industry.
Mm-hmm. Your dad worked for the same company for 45 years. What was that company and what did he do? That's fascinating.
Yeah, my dad actually, both my mom and dad were born in Chicago, and my dad, with a high school degree, he went to work. His first job was with a dairy. He actually was a milk truck driver. He drove a milk truck, and it's really interesting now. He was a Teamster. So when the Teamsters would have their strikes, he tells a lot of stories about what it was like when he was a Teamster. People basically coming up the side of the truck with a weapon if you were, crossing the picket line, so to speak. So he tells a lot of those stories, which is really interesting to hear. But the company that he ultimately ended up with, which was actually acquired, it was a grocery distributor. Today, it's owned by Roundy's out of Wisconsin. So Roundy's is the company now, but back then it was Scott Ladd Foods, which was acquired by Roundy's.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you into when you were a kid? Like, let's go middle school to high school. What were some of your activities and the things that you enjoyed spending time doing?
You're really making me dust off my memory because I'm, quite a bit older, and I need to really think back and try to reflect. High school was interesting for me. I absolutely love sports. Played freshman basketball, played freshman baseball, but quite frankly, I was never really that good at any of them. To this day, I still make the joke. I cannot hit a curve. I could not hit a curveball, and I still can't hit a curveball. It wasn't going to happen. And then as I started to get into my sophomore and junior year, I took a job in a grocery store, and I spent a lot of time working in a grocery store, which actually I think it helped give me a good work ethic, and quite frankly, it helped motivate me to excel in college, because as hard a work as that was, I mean, you're talking about schlepping boxes and throwing cases on the shelf and unloading trucks and loading trucks. It was hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
And that was good motivation, because every summer, between years in college, I would always come back and work in the grocery store. And
Yeah.
it's so ironic, Aaron, when I think about, some of the challenges that I hear from business owners today about getting employees to show up, be punctual. I'm convinced I was probably never the best cashier or the best stock boy in the grocery store, but when I got put on the schedule, I was always there. I showed up. And I can remember as a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, all the cashiers who were, younger and, shall I say, more inclined to go out and enjoy their weekends, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
They wouldn't show up on Saturday morning. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little under the weather. Yeah,
Dragging.
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, I'm sure they were. Yeah. So, you had was that work ethic, and still, we talk about nature versus nurture, and obviously we're going to get into your career a little bit about some of the things, both from a leadership and a risk-taking standpoint that you've done. How do you think that was instilled in you from a nature versus nurture standpoint? I know obviously it sounds like work ethic was instilled in you. How about like taking some risks and stuff like that?
It's really interesting. Neither my mom nor my dad are risk takers. They're both relatively conservative. I mean, my dad worked for one company for 45 years. The two things that were instilled in our household were, one, a good work ethic, which I think I got that both from my mom and my dad. And then the other thing was the importance of education, because neither my mom nor my dad were college educated, and that their generation, their sole objective was they wanted to make sure their children got more education than they had, because they were both high school educated. So it was education, it was work ethic. Those were the two things that were critical.
So neither of them went to college, and it was a big deal for you guys for you and your siblings to go to college. So you chose the Ohio State University, the original college to put "the" in front of its name. What made you decide that you wanted to go to be a Buckeye?
It's funny. My wife and I have younger adults, if you will, children.
Yeah.
And when our youngest started the college search, it was really interesting. I remember calling my mom, because we'd been to like 4 or 5 or 6, college campuses to visit throughout the Midwest. We were all over the place. And I called my mom. I said, "Hey, Mom, okay, I'm in my late 40s, early 50s. Evan wants to go to college, and we're doing all these campus visits. Can you refresh my memory? Did we do that when I went to college?" And my mom's like, "You had one choice. You either went to the state school or you went to no school." Yeah. She said, "So no, you didn't have college visits." And it's really funny because, I graduated in the early 80s. 82 is when I graduated.
Yeah.
And Ohio State was the safety school. I mean, everybody got into Ohio State. I'm convinced today, I don't know that I would be able to get into Ohio State if I was a high school student graduate. I'm not sure. I mean, academics are really, really strong now. And it wasn't that way before.
Yeah.
In terms of back 40 years ago.
Yeah. I just know that there's some of those schools like Ohio State that there's just it's prestigious, right? It's difficult to get into. I think it maybe is less challenging if you're a resident. But so you might have had that going for you if you still lived in Ohio. But yeah, times have changed, man.
Well, and not only that, and this will really floor you, because I don't know if you and I have ever discussed this, but back when I went to college, my first semester at Ohio State, tuition was $325 a quarter. So for
Whoa.
$1,000 a year, that was your tuition. Now that wasn't room and board, that was
Yeah.
tuition.
Still, that's
So, and I mean, well,
oh, that's insane. Well,
those numbers are off the charts now.
that's bonkers. Yeah. What was your first real, let's quote and say, let's say career job out of college?
Okay.
What did you do right out of college?
Right out of college, I actually went to work for a public accounting firm, Arthur Anderson.
Hmm.
And being from Ohio back in the early 80s when I graduated, the oil patch and the Sun Belt were hot. I mean, literally, and I don't, no pun intended, there were
Yeah.
lots and lots of jobs. There weren't enough college graduates to fill those jobs. So as a result, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, California, they were plucking people from all over the country to go work there.
Hmm.
So I basically picked up and went to work for Arthur Anderson in Texas. I started my career as an auditor with Arthur Anderson in Houston.
Why did you decide to go, with your mom taking care of the family and your dad working in sales? Why did you decide to go to the financial route?
That's a wonderful question. It's really interesting. When I was younger, guidance counselors had a much more significant impact on shaping, what you did with your career. And one of the things, even to this day, I always had a high aptitude for math, not so high aptitude for reading. So in all the standardized testing, my math testing was off the chart. My non-math testing was below the chart. And the guidance counselor said, well, with that math aptitude, you should be an accountant. So I did what any good young person who's paying attention did. I listened to what they told me. So I went to be an accountant.
So you stayed there for a few years and then you went to go work corporate. And so, okay, I want to go a couple different directions with this. So
Sure.
you're at a firm, and and you did go to, because you went to a large college, large state school, was it kind of sexy to go and work corporate? Was that just part of the deal? Like, go work corporate because that's where you're going to get the biggest amount of opportunities?
Well, if I think back at Ohio State, the program that I was in an accounting program at Ohio State. It was an honors accounting program, and there were only a handful, maybe a couple dozen people who were in the program.
Mm-hmm.
We were heavily recruited at the time by big 8 accounting firms. So, was it sexy? I don't know that it was sexy. It was almost like the expectation was, if you're going to go through this program, you should start your career in public accounting, because that'll give you an opportunity after you spend at least the 2 years and you get your testing all done and you pass the CPA exam. Then you can pretty much, as we were told, the world is your oyster. You just can go wherever you want to do and do whatever you want.
I was doing a little, prep and stuff, and I was looking at, there's a period of time from 89 to, let's say, 2003, which is a good chunk of time, right? Where you spent your career in some of the most unhealthy foods.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Oh, yeah.
Pepsi and Taco Bell. And so, yeah,
it can't get any worse than that, right?
yeah, you were like a burnout's dream. So talk about your time at Pepsi. You spent a good amount of time there, actually, like 7 years or so. That's one thing I think is really great about having a conversation with someone like yourself, is that I don't talk to a lot of people that spend good chunks of 7 to 10 years at a place, where it's more like 2 to 3, and then I tried something new, 2 to 3, and I tried something new. So it's great to talk about the time and longevity that you spent at these places. So a little bit about Pepsi, like what was the culture and the feel at that time, which is, I think, kind
Sure.
of the height of Pepsi, late 80s, early 90s, of when they were growing crazy.
Well, I will tell you, Pepsi's culture was very similar to Arthur Anderson's culture. It was very much an up or out mentality, and I don't think I fully understood it until after I left Pepsi and Arthur Anderson, when dealing with recruiters, executive search people. Honestly, Aaron, they would look at my resume they really wouldn't even ask any questions. They go, "Oh, well, you worked at Arthur Andersen and you worked at PepsiCo. That's great. Tell me more about what you're looking to do, because we'd really like to talk further." So I would say it was a very performance driven, up or out, growth oriented culture. Both Arthur Andersen as well as PepsiCo, and had a reputation, quite candidly, for burning people out. Burn and churn was kind of the way it went. So
yeah.
and it's funny, you made the comment about you don't talk to a lot of people who have been in one place for 6 or 7 years. And I think if you recall our initial discussion when you and I first met at People's Organic, one of the comments I made to you was I was interested in Coalition 9 primarily because I wanted to hang out with people who were younger and smarter than me. There you go, right?
Well,
2, 3, 4 years, and they move on to the next opportunity. So,
well, and I think that's just a generational a lot of things drive that, right? I think generation, economy, just all of technology has probably changed that, just because, accessibility to, where I was in a group yesterday and they were talking about how one person's mom used to run the want ads, and she ran the desk of the want ads at the Star Tribune, and that's how that's how people came to get jobs. And now you just fast forward to where everything's at your fingertips with LinkedIn and Indeed and Monster and all that other stuff. So I just think it's fascinating to be able to talk to people who have had longevity in there. So was your role at Pepsi, where were you located when you were with Pepsi for those years?
Well, Pepsi's a really interesting organization. I'm gonna just give a little context before I answer the question.
Yeah.
Back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, Pepsi owned the sugar water company, Pepsi-Cola, which actually had a franchise and a company component. There were company-owned bottlers and franchise bottlers. Pepsi also owned snack foods, Frito-Lay. So again, more healthy food groups, right? Pop and salty chips, right? But in addition, as you alluded, they also owned restaurants way back then, which was KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. So as a result of the sheer mass and the size of that organization, and the really the global diversity as well as the domestic diversity, they were all over the country. What Pepsi did was they brought financial talent into their internal audit group. So that's really where I jumped into Pepsi. I came into internal audit for a couple of years, learned about the operating businesses, and then as financial opportunities came up across the whole Pepsi network, you got plugged in and you rolled out to these various divisions. So it was literally a 2-year training program, kind of like financial boot camp, if you will, for Pepsi. And then they rolled you out. So at the end of my 2 years in the early 90s, I was given the opportunity to pursue 3 positions in Wichita, Kansas, or 1 position in Southern California. Guess which one I chose?
Yeah, shocker.
Yeah. So I ended up, I went to Southern California. Pepsi had a distribution division where they distributed food, restaurant supplies, and equipment to their company-owned restaurants and franchise restaurants. And I moved into a finance manager role in that distribution company. So I spent 2 years there. And then really I began to kind of come out of my finance shell, if you will. And I ended up moving over to Taco Bell Corporate, which was also in Irvine, working closely with franchisees. That's where I would say I really got the entrepreneurial bug, because I was seeing what franchisees were capable of doing. I ran a group that actually had to evaluate financial health of franchisees. So if they were going to grow and add new units, we would run them through a model and say, hey, they're capable of growing. Do they have the operational chops? I didn't answer that. I answered, do they have the financial chops? So it was a blast, because I saw all these large growing organizations who were entrepreneurial and growing their businesses. And I got to meet all these business owners, which was phenomenal.
So did Border Foods spin out of Pepsi, or how did that all come about? Because I know that's kind of a Minnesota story of the Border Food side of things. What happened there?
At the time I was at PepsiCo working in Taco Bell, they were still owned. Taco Bell was still owned by PepsiCo. This would have been the 94, 95 timeframe.
Yep.
PepsiCo made a strategic decision that they were going to shed company-owned restaurants because they had tons and tons of money tied up in these company restaurants. So they started selling company-owned restaurants to franchisees across the country. I was in the group at Taco Bell that was actually doing deals and selling company-owned restaurants to franchisees.
Yeah.
So as a result of those interactions, I met two brothers here in the Twin Cities who had an opportunity to buy the brand of Taco Bell for the state of Minnesota. And because of previous business experiences they had, they needed a CFO because it was a, shall I say, a tens of millions of dollar deal, like a $30 million deal to buy these restaurants.
Yeah.
So these individuals approached me about possibly joining them as their CFO, which is what ultimately brought me to Minnesota. So I came to Minnesota to be a minority partner in Border Foods back in 1996, and we bought 63 restaurants in October of 1996.
And that had to be a hell of a ride. Like that, just going through that process had to be bonkers.
I will tell you, in my career, the two most enjoyable experiences I've had, that was one of them. And I'll save the last one until we get later in the career. But that was probably one of two of the most exciting experiences I've had, because we were literally building the race car while we were on the track. I mean, literally. I mean, just figuring out how to get stuff done. I mean, the stories there are amazing. Great career learnings and professional learnings about how to do things and how to innovate and think differently. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. So you spent a good amount of time there. That's what brought you to Minnesota. So I don't want to just, I mean, you and I could probably jam for 2 hours, and I do try and keep this podcast too.
Well, part of it because I'm so doggone old, right?
Well, you've just got such
an experience,
interesting career, and I think we all know, like, just how crazy of a rocket ship the whole Border Foods thing was/is, right? Because they continue to innovate. So at some point, they got out, right? That you guys all got out, right? Because I think wasn't there a buyout or something that happened of Border Foods and PE came in or something? I think I remember.
What actually ended up happening was I went to work for a family business. I wasn't family, and I was a minority shareholder. And quite frankly, we became incredibly successful. And a lot of family businesses that become successful, if you don't have the right last name.
Yep.
So as a minority shareholder, I actually I opted to sell out in late 2002, 2003. The mark of a fair deal, Aaron, when the buyer thinks that he's overpaid and the seller thinks they underpaid, or vice versa.
Right.
Nobody thought it was fair, but everybody thought they either overpaid or underpaid. Honestly, the truth is somewhere in the middle, right?
Right.
Sold out in 2002, 2003 is how that ended.
So before we get into the next stage in your career, I want to take a quick break, hear from a few of our community supporters. One of our community supporters is Boulay, which you are with. And if anybody's watching on video can see in the background, you're proudly showing the logo. So let's take a quick break. Let's hear from a few of our community supporters, and then we'll be right back. When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at BoulayGroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. If you're a business owner wanting to save money on your overall real estate costs,
I want you to give Carlson Partners a call. The team will help minimize your risk exposure and help you leverage the market to see maximized benefits to your next lease, purchase, or disposition. They've advocated and negotiated for hundreds of companies and saved millions of dollars in real estate expenses. With over 75 years of experience representing business owners, let them help you save time and money on your next real estate negotiation. Visit carlsonpartnersllc.com to learn more. Listen, people, everyone needs a bank. Not just any bank, a good community bank. From personal needs like checking and savings accounts to business services like financing and M&A support, the team at Flagship Bank is there to provide you with the assistance you need so you can spend less time thinking about your finances and more time enjoying what your money can do for you. To learn more, head over to flagshipbanks.com. That's flagshipbanks with an S.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Flagship Bank, investing in you.
All right, we're back with Lenny Newman. I'm thrilled to continue this conversation, your journey. You know, you've had such a crazy ride up until this point. And then, so you exit Border Foods. I'm sure you got a little bit of, you get some love on the financial side because of the investment that you made, both in time and money. What did you decide to do at that stage in your career?
You know, it's one of those, I call them, kind of the fork in the road. What do you do? And because I'd been in this entrepreneurial environment for 7 years, the thought of going to work for a corporation, it was like, no, I don't really want to do that. So my wife and I, we pondered and we decided probably the worst decision we ever made financially. We decided to go into the restaurant business ourselves. And from 2004 to 2011, we were a franchisee of a concept called Camille's Sidewalk Cafe. And you know, the old adage, how do you make $1 million in the restaurant business? Invest 10 million.
Right.
It wasn't quite that bad. However, I will share this with you. If I had just spent $100,000 and gotten an MBA for 2 years, I would have been about $300,000-400,000 to the upside, if you know what I mean. So
I just did some quick math in my head, so I think I do know exactly what you mean. So what was one, let's see if what was one major lesson learned that you, from working hands-on in the business on a day-to-day basis, all things considered, right? So revenue, operations, finance, marketing, all of the things that go into, a retail environment versus sitting in the CFO seat running a bunch of franchisees?
Probably the two key learnings for me. I'm going to use two, not one.
Okay, that is great.
One is the power of brand. The brand is so important. I mean, we talk about the Taco Bell experience. Everybody knows Taco Bell. You talk about Camille's Sidewalk Cafe.
Right.
Huh? What's that?
Right.
So the power of the brand cannot be overlooked. And I underestimated the power of the brand. That was the first thing. And then the second thing is you got to have staying power. I mean, you have to be properly capitalized. And that's one of the things as I'm doing my current, business development activity. I love spending time with young up and coming business owners and talking to them about the importance of being properly capitalized, because you got to have staying power.
Right. And was Camille's a well-known brand in other parts of the country, or were you just part of a bunch of people like yourself that just took a chance on this concept?
Yeah, it was founded in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The best way to describe it, it was kind of like Panera without the bakery. So
Okay.
It was soup, sandwich, salads, and wraps. It was operationally, it was very, very straightforward. It wasn't a challenging operation. The problem was it was a perfect storm. Occupancy costs were going up. We weren't able to raise prices. Our cost of everything that was coming in by truck was going up. I mean, literally, that's the other key learning for me. And I'll put a third one in. Margins are critical to businesses. I mean, when you look at the restaurant space itself, margins are razor thin. And I compare that to my most recent CFO gig, where my business owners wouldn't talk to anybody unless margins were north of 30%. We won't even talk about it. So that was the other key learning. You got to have healthy margins. And unfortunately, the restaurant space is not known for that.
So you, did you decide to call it quits just because it was just draining you, probably both financially
Well,
and emotionally? Was it
you,
just
you
too
know,
much?
well, both my wife and I worked in the business, and actually that worked out well. We had plenty of time for family. I spent a lot of great times on the baseball field coaching my son. It gave us a lot of life flexibility.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't provide the financial, juice that we needed. But the real answer to your question is when we got to the end of the 5th year and there was literally nothing left in the shoebox, as I like to say,
Yeah.
all of our experts said, well, you should file Chapter 11. It's like, no, my wife and I, we're both Midwestern folks. We're like, we knew that I wanted to work in this town again as a CFO. And quite frankly, if you have that hanging around your neck, that's probably not
Yeah.
the appropriate course of action. And I'm pleased to say we chose to work it out with our creditors. Thankfully, all of our creditors have been repaid now, which is
Yeah, good.
fabulous.
Yeah,
And
great.
none of them lost a nickel. Now, they weren't paid timely, but they were repaid and they didn't
Yeah.
write anything off. So that's what really forced us to, shall I say, shutter the business. Because at the time we had 3 locations and we closed all 3 of them.
Yeah. And I think that says a lot about your character, right? Of just doing right by the, and I think any banker would be happy to get at least a break even on something that decides to close their doors rather than have some kind of legal protection or something like that.
Well, and the reality is it has now become a part of my DNA. It's
Hmm.
who I am, and it really has carried forward with me in a very positive way. I mean, I'm very comfortable telling the story. It's not a pleasant story. I have a lot of people come to me and say they want to go in business for themselves, and I say, before you do that, let's just spend a half hour and chat. I mean,
Yeah.
let's just let's make sure you know exactly what you're getting into.
Especially if you're getting into the food business.
Oh yeah, I try to steer them away from restaurants.
Yeah, yeah. So then you made that, what was that period of time? Did you take a little time off just to catch your breath before you went back into being a CFO again, or did you jump right
You know,
back in?
I'm going to say in all my professional career, that was probably the point where I was the lowest because I had a failed business. I didn't know how to
Hmm.
talk about it. And I probably spent a good 3 to 6 months working on my networking, talking with people who helped me converse about it in a very, very matter of fact, comfortable way. And literally within 6 months, I was able to find a consulting assignment out of town for about a year. All the while, continued to build my network, learn about LinkedIn, learn about how to find a job in the 21st century.
Hmm.
And after the consulting assignment ended for a year, I literally came back to the Twin Cities, and within 6 weeks, because of the strength of my network, landed my last CFO gig was for a digital publishing company called Eastview Information Services, and I was with them for almost 8.5 years.
Yeah.
Probably would have left earlier had the pandemic not started, just because, as you can tell from my profile, I literally every 7 years I seem to pick up and move and do something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost 7 years, 7 years, 7 years. So that
Well,
one that one took a little bit longer.
I've talked and I've had on this show Jamie Tates and April Seifert, and they both refer to a thing called decade shift. And so every 7 to 10 years, it's just a natural occurrence in people that they decide that they want to at least adapt what they're doing or make a major change. And as we've gone through your journey to this point, it's hit that you've been right in check with that. Did the pandemic is the pandemic eventually what drove you to where it was the decision to leave Eastview?
Actually, because of the pandemic, as I like to tell, I was kind of a COVID casualty.
Oh yeah.
In late 2020, my CFO job was eliminated, and I felt pretty good about this. I was replaced with 2 people, which,
Mm,
at the time, for somebody in their late 50s, I felt from an ego standpoint, hey, it
right.
took 2 people to do the work that I did, myself. So my controller got elevated into the role with part of the responsibilities. And then there was an HR resource who was hired externally. So they brought an extra person in. And Aaron, I got to tell you, that to me, the way those business owners handled that transition, I don't think it could have been any better. They sent me out with a pat on the back. They sent me out with plenty of runway to find my next opportunity. And then I think you know where the rest of the story goes. So
Yeah, and I think I'm tight with some people at Boulay, obviously, before you were there, and boy, I'll tell you, it was such a no-brainer to have you come, and even though I want to get away from the title, so your title is Director of Business Development, which I the business development thing can freak people out a little bit. I don't look at it anything like that, and I said this at the beginning, like the 911 responder for all things financial. It's imagine having someone like yourself with all of this experience, all of this, especially at a CFO level, and really just focused on building relationships and I think you're such a anomaly from a CFO standpoint that you're a natural relationship builder and natural networker that it just, I mean, this was just kind of like a match made in heaven. It kind of was it just is a no-brainer.
well, I certainly appreciate your comments, but I'll be honest with you. I think the people who you are connected with at Boulay are also the relationship builders, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think there's some of the younger partners who, quite honestly, they're doing a lot of the BD work themselves with their book of business, but I think they don't represent the majority of the partner group. The majority of the partner group does not do what guys like you and I do in terms of building relationships and instilling confidence in some of those things. So I do think it should have been a no-brainer, but you have to understand, I believe I'm kind of a unicorn in the land of CPAs. I really am.
Totally.
And again, excluding the people who you and I share in common that are relationships that you have with Boulay, most of the Boulay folks, they love the fact that I'm chasing this stuff down. They do.
Yeah,
because
no, I don't doubt it for a second. Yeah,
Yeah,
I talked to Ryan Turbis the other day. He's in the group that I lead, and it's like you guys are drinking through a fire hose right now. And that's in all aspects of the business. I think Boulay does some. Here's your chance to do your little commercial on Boulay. So obviously, people will hear the commercial, the ad that I put on here for Boulay because you guys are community supporters. But talk about some of the things. So I think the diversity of what you guys do is and not only just being a traditional CPA, but also some of the other things. What are some of the things that Boulay does, and what are maybe some of the areas that are not thought about when Boulay comes to mind?
Great question. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat about it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but here's what I will say. Obviously, we're a traditional CPA firm, audit and tax. Probably the areas where we really differentiate ourselves is, I'll call it, people who are looking to, shall I say, buy or sell businesses. We do a ton of work in the M&A space. Quality of earnings is probably one of the most growing part of our businesses, if you will. We also handle 401k plans. We're wealth management. I mean, we have over $3 billion under advisement in our wealth management group. We've got 30 to 40 wealth management professionals. What's so fun about what I'm doing is whenever anyone reaches out to me for anything financially related, I either have a resource within Boulay who I can help them solve their problem, or if I don't have a resource within Boulay, I've got resources through my network who can help solve problems. So we do target small to mid-market, 3 to 5 million in revenue, all the way up to a couple 300 million. Sweet spots probably in the 25 to 125 million in revenue, but it's been a lot of fun. And I mentioned earlier, this is the second most fun I've had in my career. The first was when we were building the race car while we were, basically on the track. This has been more fun than that. It really has.
Well, you're friggin' good at it, so it should be fun. And anytime you're good at something, then that makes life so much easier. So, you're at this point in your career, like, I mean, I think you're a pretty driven guy, and you've kind of found your sweet spot in doing this and continuing to build relationships. And I think they've given, you've been there for a little while now, so they've given you that runway to build up that re-identity of yourself. out in the market to where now I think you are synonymous with Boulay, which is really great because that always is a little bit of a hurdle for people. So is this is part of the jam into the future? I got to imagine, right?
Well, hey, look, I mean, the one thing that I know for sure, when I took the job and pivoted a year and a half ago, keep in mind, I'd been a sitting CFO for 15 of the last 20 years. This was a huge leap, if you will. Hey, go out and see if you can bring new business in. And oh, by the way, we don't want you talking to our existing clients. Go talk to new clients. Bring in new clients. I would say, as I look at my year and a half in, I don't think I could have done any better. Probably the big challenge that we all face is, I mean, we only have a limited supply of resources. I think you mentioned, your discussion earlier in the week with Turbo. That's a concern. I mean, you can only sell so much work, and at some point, if you can't do the work, then why bother selling it, right?
Right.
And that is a concern, and it's not just a Boulay concern. This is an industry concern. It's manufacturing. Every business you talk to, there's problems with staffing and getting work done. So, but no, I do think this is my jam going forward for sure. I really like the people I work with. Hey, look, there's some times where I'm coming up against some partners who have relationships too, and I've got relationships, and you've been in the sales world, Aaron. What happens there, so you just try to work those things out, right?
Yeah. So so let's wind down before 9 questions here. I do want to touch base on your family. So you and your wife live here in the Twin Cities. You have adult kids that are out on their own. We've talked about our dog challenges in the past. You and I, we're not going to get into that. What do you guys like to do for fun?
Well, first of all, as a family, my wife and I absolutely love going to movies. Cool. Believe it or not. The last 2 to 3 years has not been kind for people who like to go to movies. Yeah. Although last night we did attend a premiere from the Twin Cities Film Festival of a film that's going to hit the screens, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Called Till, T-I-L-L.
I read all about it this morning. Yeah,
my brother gotta go see it. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So we love movies. As you mentioned, we're pet enthusiasts. My wife and I love pets, particularly dogs. I'm a huge baseball fan. That's probably my biggest passion. I love baseball.
Sweet.
I absolutely love baseball. Family, I think, has just to close the loop on the family, 2 children, 2 grandchildren, son and daughter live here in Plymouth. Daughter and son-in-law and the 2 grandkids live up in the Champlin area, Maple Grove, Champlin. They're all close. And it's funny, people always say, gosh, they're so close, you must see them all the time. And the truth is, we see them when they invite us. If they invite us, we're there. If not, they're living their lives too. So
what's your favorite baseball team? Pro.
Well, currently the Twins, but I grew up as a staunch Reds fan. Big Red Machine.
I was wondering if it was somewhere in Ohio. And then I'll just throw this out as a shameless plug. Have I ever told you that my brother is a movie writer? So he writes about movies. I want to say it's almost like a blogger. So check this out, Lenny, and I'll put it on the podcast here. Deep Focus Review. And my brother, I think, was at that movie. He's not been home. He's not going to be home for like 11 days straight because every night he's doing something for the Twin Cities Film Festival. And he's like writes for Rotten Tomatoes and all that other stuff. So anyway, deepfocusreview.com. People can check that out. And then I want you to as well.
And what's your brother's name?
Brian Eggert.
R-Y-A-N?
B-R-I-A-N.
Oh, Brian. Got it. You broke up a little bit. Okay. No, Brian Eggert. Got it. All right.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, listen to a few more of our community supporters like Boulay, and then we're going to come back with 9 questions. Ready to roll.
United Healthcare believes there's no limit to what care can do. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.3 million care professionals and 6,500 hospitals and care facilities, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting you to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. Go to uhc.com for healthcare plans, resources, and more information. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives.
If you're an entrepreneur or married to one, you likely have a shared vision on your future, but there's uncertainty on how to get there. that's where the team at eWealth Partners comes in. They see you as a dynamic duo, and as fiduciaries, they're committed to helping dynamic duos like you design a financial plan that aligns and empowers you. Navigating the entrepreneurial journey shouldn't add stress to your relationship. It should be fun and exciting. Visit ewealthpartners.com to learn how they help couples like you plan for their financial future today. eWealth Partners, holistic financial planning for entrepreneurial couples. Investment advisor services offered through AdvisorNet Wealth Management. eWealth Partners and AdvisorNet Wealth Management are not affiliated.
If you're anything like me, you know enough to be dangerous when it comes to finance, yet need some help when things get complicated. All-in-One Accounting provides the right financial expertise and leadership to align with your stage of growth. From outsourced accounting and bookkeeping to strategic financial planning, the team of accounting rockstars at All-in-One Accounting are passionate about positively impacting the lives of their clients. Check them out at allinoneaccounting.com. All-in-One Accounting, taking our clients from financial chaos to business clarity and beyond. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to help guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism.
Okay, we're back with Lenny Newman, and we're doing 9 questions. He is probably mildly nervous. Are you nervous for this, or do you not get nervous about this stuff?
You know, honestly, I probably should be nervous, but I'm not. It's like,
All right.
I'll probably do say the first thing that comes to my mind. It could get me in trouble, but it's okay.
All right. Well, can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
Not a clue.
Good. All right. Question 1. What was your first car?
1967 Olds Cutlass
Sweet.
convertible, and I
Yeah.
still have it.
You still have it?
I do.
You still have it from then, or did you go back and buy it?
No, I still have it. I've
What?
owned it since 1975.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, my wife is convinced I love that car more than her, and I never respond when she makes that accusation. I just
Yeah. Do you more? It's like a 1A, 1B type thing. Is it in good shape?
right now it's about a B-, but
Yeah.
it's on the bucket list. It's going to be in good shape someday. It's going to take a while, but it will
Yeah.
be someday.
Sweet. Do you take it to shows or anything like that, or do you just cruise in it a little bit and then park it?
It's currently on mothballs in Eden Valley, Minnesota, in a barn.
Okay, it's
And it's been there for 5 years. So
all right. Nice. That's a great answer. I'm glad that I asked that. That's fun.
I like that question.
Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, let's hope the rest of these get as much of a interesting response. What is the one? Okay, so I don't think it's going to be the same thing. What is the one thing that you own that you wish you didn't?
Well, if you were asking my wife that, it would be the car.
Right. That's what I was, alluding to. But yeah, I'm talking to you though.
I wish we didn't own a lawnmower.
Just hire the neighbor kid.
And the reason I say that is because when we moved into the townhome, the thought process was we would have all that outsourced. But my wife is incredibly meticulous, and we have a lawnmower. So I wish we didn't have the lawnmower.
All right. Good answer. If I were to ask your best friend what you're known for, what would that person say?
He would probably say, anytime anyone asks me a question, if I know somebody, I would always respond, of course, I've got a guy or I've got a gal. That's what he would say. He knows somebody for everything. So that's what he would say.
Yep. Love it. Close your eyes. What is your favorite smell?
Believe it or not, flowers, violets. I love the smell of violets.
Good answer. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First of 2 would you rather questions. Would you rather be stuck on a broken ski lift or stuck in a broken elevator?
I would rather be stuck on a broken ski lift. And the reason is I probably chose who I was going to be on that ski lift with. as opposed to in an elevator, you never know.
Oh,
You don't know who you're there with, right?
that is a thoughtful answer. I did not think about that. What I like about I am scared shitless of heights, so I would not like the ski lift, but I am equally uneasy with confined spaces. So I don't know how I
Okay.
would answer that question. So
So
good
claustrophobic and
answer.
heights are two things for
Yeah.
you.
So
Yep.
I'm a no on both of those.
Okay.
If you could be any, so the big 152 color crayon case, if you could be any color in that case, what color would you be?
Oh, I love that. I love that question. You know, I actually would be red. I would be
Just a,
red.
yep.
Just
Good.
red. I think it's bold, it's loud. I mean, one of my favorite pieces of apparel to wear. I love this, a red shirt that I wear. I love wearing a red shirt. I don't know why. Just
All right. That's good.
loud, loud,
Yep. Here's your second. Would you rather be on an island alone or with someone that talks incessantly for 1 month?
alone,
Yeah.
alone. If I'm going to be on an island, I want peace. I've chosen to be on an island. I want peace. I
I
mean,
think
I
80,
think if you would have just said talks, that would have been okay. But
no,
incessantly,
like
yeah,
constant, right? Like it
yeah,
just,
no,
yeah.
no.
You never know though, because you're a conversationalist. I don't know. I didn't know which way you'd go with that, but that doesn't, I think 90% of people would choose what you chose, but you never know.
Yep, no, no, I got it.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
You know, I think I shared this with you in our pre-conversation. I've listened to all your podcasts. I love how you do what you do with the podcast, and I just like the way you go about it.
Oh, thanks.
And I've thought about this one because it's been asked before,
It
and
has,
I
yeah.
would say the best piece of advice that I got, I was probably in my early 20s, and somebody I worked with who was my supervisor, he knew I was a baseball fan. He said, you know, I love how hard you play the game in terms of work and your, kind of your tenacity. He said, but I'm just going to give you one piece of advice. And I think about this all the time. He goes, sometimes you're going to find a fly ball is going to be hit over your head, and you just can't always go to the wall on everything. Sometimes you just got to look, oh, it went over your head.
Yep.
And I always think about that in those moments that I know I have when I get a little animated and wound up. Should I just let that one go to the wall?
Yeah. I like that.
And
I like that.
I just think
I
that
like that
I just think it's
terminology.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great advice, and because I am a baseball guy, it definitely resonated with me. So
Yeah. All right. So you've heard of this one then before. So maybe you've got this one locked and loaded. Last question. How do you define happiness?
I would say I define happiness as trying to help people solve problems and make them feel better after they've interacted with you than before. Because I think it's really, really important. I think it's Maya Angelou says people that may never remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And to me, happiness is how you make people feel. I like to try to make people feel good after we interact. I'm not always successful though, but I try.
Are you have you done your 5 strengths thing through Gallup, and have you done that? Are you a woo? Are you high on winning
I'm
others
not
over?
woo. No,
No?
I'm not a woo.
Huh.
I'm an
All right.
arranger, learner, positivity, individual, and responsibility.
No. Good. I love that you knew
So,
those off the top of your head. That's
oh yeah,
impressive.
no, I'm well rehearsed on those.
I got to memorize mine. Well, Lenny, you did a great job on those. Your story is fabulous. I knew you'd kill this thing. And I'm so thrilled to have you part of Coalition 9. Your group loves you. You bring so much wisdom and knowledge to the group. And I think you just our community in general is better for having you in it. I want more people to know who you are. You know, flipping everybody, but some people don't know who you. And so will you do me a quick favor and just share how people can get a hold of you? Anything goes. And then also I want to make sure people know I'm going to put this in the show notes so they can click on
Sure.
whatever you have. So go ahead and fire away.
Easiest way to get in touch with me, I'm on LinkedIn constantly. My cell phone number is 763-370-0799. If it comes up as unknown, I probably won't take it. However, I return all my calls timely. So, I'm old school. You can certainly reach out. The phone still works. So phone or LinkedIn. Aaron, I wanted to say one thing. You mentioned Coalition 9, and I just want to let you know, when we first met, I set out to join a networking group that gave me or provided diversity, age diversity, ethnic diversity, and gender diversity. And I have to tell you, the group that I'm in, I absolutely adore my group. We've had some adjustments in our group.
Yeah.
But I love the group I'm in. It's a wonderfully safe space, and it's literally, as advertised. It's been a lot of fun, and I really, no pun intended, I take my hat off to you for the vision of this community. It's really cool what you're building. It's great to be part of. I kind of feel a little bit regretful that I wasn't, an early, adopter. I didn't find out about it sooner, but I love the group, and our facilitator, she's awesome. I love Sarah.
Sarah's fantastic. Well, thank you for all those kind words, and we're growing because of people like you saying things like that, but then also telling your friends. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you do for our community. I appreciate everything that you do for the greater community outside of Coalition 9, obviously the Twin Cities community, and the connections that you bring. And I'm super thrilled that people were able to hear your story. So let's wrap this thing up. On behalf of Lenny Newman, this has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.